Live from New Delhi, you're watching DD India News Hour, India's voice to the world. I am Siddharth Bharadwaj. Coming up in the next hour. In a tragic incident, over 40 Indians killed in building fire in Kuwait. India's Prime Minister Narendra Modi holds a review meeting, directs officials to extend all possible assistance. India's External Affairs Minister S. Jaishankar speaks to Kuwaiti counterpart, assures full assistance and urges early repatriation of mortal remains of those who lost their lives. Gaza ceasefire plan in balance as US says Hamas proposed changes. US Federal Reserve keeps key lending rate unchanged. One cut possible in 2024, down from the 3 expected in March. India beat USA by 7 wickets in ICC Men's T20 World Cup 2024, qualifies for Super 8 stage. India's Prime Minister Narendra Modi chaired a review meeting on the fire tragedy in Kuwait, in which around 40 Indian nationals killed and over 50 were injured. The Prime Minister expressed his deep sorrow at the unfortunate incident and extended condolences to the families of the deceased. He wished speedy recovery of those injured. He also announced ex gratia relief of Rs 2 lakh to the families of deceased. Prime Minister directed that Government of India should extend all possible assistance. India's External Affairs Minister Dr. S. Jaishankar spoke to his Kuwaiti counterpart Abdullah Ali Al-Yaya. Sharing a post on X, Minister Jaishankar said, and I quote, "Spoke to Kuwaiti FM Abdullah Ali Al-Yaya on fire tragedy in Kuwait, apprised of the efforts made by Kuwaiti authorities in that regard, was assured that the incident would be fully investigated and that responsibility will be fixed. Urged the early repatriation of the mortal remains of those who lost their lives. He emphasized that those injured were getting the requisite medical attention." Minister of State for External Affairs Kirti Vardhan Singh is urgently travelling to Kuwait following a direction from Prime Minister Narendra Modi primarily to oversee assistance to Indians injured in the fire.
The situation is that the victims are mostly burn victims, and some of the bodies have been charred beyond recognition. So a DNA test is underway to identify the victims, and the Air Force plane is on the ready, and as soon as the bodies are identified, their kin will be informed, and our Air Force plane will bring the bodies back. The latest figures that we had last night, the casualty figures are around 48, 49, out of which 42 or 43 are believed to be our countrymen Indians.
Emir of Kuwait, Sheikh Meshal Al Ahmad Al Jaber Al Sabah on Wednesday ordered authorities to probe the massive fire incident, vowed to hold accountable those responsible for the tragedy that killed several people. The Emir directed officials to follow up the cause of the fire outbreak and hold whomever was responsible accountable. Well, DD India's Meghna Dev joins us for more details. Meghna, earlier Prime Minister Narendra Modi chaired a review meeting and, to ensure maximum assistance of every kind, and now MoS, MEA, Vardhan Singh has left for Kuwait. It's a very tragic incident where 40 Indians are reportedly killed. What latest information do you have for us, Meghna?
Yes, Siddharth, definitely a very tragic incident for that matter. And what we definitely get to understand is that now the major task is the repatriation of the mortal remains.
Okay.
What we definitely understand from the situation and from what the Minister of State for External Affairs, Kirti has said, that because the bodies are charred, it is difficult to identify the bodies. So identification in itself is a task, before we get the bodies repatriated. When we talk about, such fire tragedies, it is definitely one of the in Kuwait, what we see from the media reports and newspapers, it is one of the most horrific building fires in the history of Kuwait.
Okay.
That's what a few newspapers in Kuwait are also saying. Besides that, 40 people, 40 Indians have been killed in this tragic fire. The Ministry of External Affairs has said that 40 Indians have been killed. 50 are injured. The injured are admitted to different government hospitals in that area. Having said all of that, it is an important task at the moment at hand. Prime Minister Narendra Modi did yesterday also hold a meeting on this incident because it is a massive incident which has killed 40 Indian people. We also get to know that most of these people hail from the southern part of India, states like Kerala and Tamil Nadu.
Okay.
But we will definitely have to see what process follows on, because the Minister of State is on his way there, and he will be looking over the coordination with the Kuwaiti authorities in terms of repatriation of the mortal remains, as well as assistance to those who are injured and are undergoing treatment. What we also get to know that few of them are in ICU but are currently stable, and most of them are in hospitals and are stable. Ambassador of India to Kuwait, Ambassador Adarsh, also did visit the hospitals.
Yeah.
He was also there at the site yesterday.
Indeed.
The only Siddharth, this incident happened early in the morning. Most of these laborers in the labor camp, the workers in the labor camp were sleeping. So, they were caught unaware, and most of them could not run to save their lives, could not escape to save their lives. Most of them died because of the burns, but quite a few of them did die because of inhalation of smoke. But now the Kuwaiti authorities have woken up to this tragic incident and are invigilating and looking out for such other labor camps wherein laws are being violated and rules are being flouted, and are now doing a crackdown on such such facilities and such buildings.
Definitely, Meghna. Most deaths due to smoke inhalation. Any update, Meghna, on how the families of deceased are dealing with this unfortunate incident? It's a tough time, and in fact a very tough one. What are they saying? Any information on that?
Definitely, we can probably say that it's a terrible time for the families back in India whose loved ones have died in this fire tragedy. We will definitely have to, while the embassy has opened up a WhatsApp and call helpline, which is running 24/7, providing all the details. It is definitely difficult at the moment for the embassy also to probably, because the identification is also a task at hand. So, the people whose relatives or whose probably a brother or a son or people who were working there, they are trying to ascertain the details if they are safe or not. So the embassy is working round the clock with the helpline. Having said that, once this news broke that this has happened at a labor camp, we definitely get to understand that 20% of the population in Kuwait is of the Indian expatriates. About 1 million Indian expatriates live in Kuwait, and it is the largest expatriate community living in Kuwait. 30% of the workforce in Kuwait comprises of Indians, and most of them, a large portion of them, are these skilled, semi-skilled workers. And the reason that before an official announcement of about 40 deaths of Indians, it was being assumed that at this facility it will be most of these people who have died would be Indians, because it is the largest workforce there. Also, the Kuwaiti authorities have taken into questioning the janitor. They have taken into questioning the owner of the place, the owner of the labor camp, the building where these people were living.
Indeed.
There are also a number of cases which have now come up that there is an overcrowding of these workers in such labor camps. Now,
definitely, certainly, Meghna, it's a very tragic incident, and since it's a developing story, we'll keep taking updates from you. But thank you so much as of now for that detailed analysis, Meghna. Also, DD India correspondent Vinod Kumar joins us from Dubai. Good morning, Vinod.
Good morning.
What's the latest you're having for us? We heard that some key officials have been suspended following the incident. Any information of the owner of that particular building where this incident happened?
Yes, the owner of the building is one Mr. KG Abraham. He is the owner of the NBTC group here in Kuwait, and this NBTC group is the largest building construction group in Kuwait. And as far as we know, the Deputy Prime Minister of Kuwait has ordered the detention of the owner, the watchman, and the other employees of the NBTC group, which was present there in the building which caught fire. Also, the Kuwaiti Deputy PM has made a poignant statement that it's the greed of these kind of construction companies which is causing these kind of fires. As you know, this is Arabian Peninsula, and on an average, the temperatures here are quite high. So the building codes has to be very specific, and it has to be maintained with utmost integrity. If it is not, there is conducive situations all over most of the time in the year, so that a fire can erupt. Unlike in India, where you have a huge temperature which is followed by a monsoon, here in this part of the Arabian Peninsula, you don't have that. So always there is a background set for having these kind of incidents. That is why the building codes across the Arabian Peninsula has to be maintained with topmost integrity. Yes, this building owner has been detained right now, and as we know that our MoS Kirti Vardhan is reaching today at 9:30 in Kuwait, and he will meet the finance minister as well as the other high officials of Kuwait, the state of Kuwait, and hope that all the measures will be taken so that the bodies of people who have been identified beyond recognition will be DNA tested, and they'll be brought back in an Indian Air Force aeroplane, and all the other measures will be taken to facilitate the kith and kin of the deceased.
Definitely, Vinod. We hope that all the necessary measures are taken. It's a tragic incident, and building in which that incident took place houses over 195 workers, and also most deaths were due to smoke inhalation. What sort of assistance is the Kuwaiti government providing?
The Kuwait government has rushed their civil defenses forces right on the moment the fire has been reported. The fire was reported early in the morning. So, as you know, when an inferno like this happens, most of the deaths happen due to toxic inhalation of smoke. When this smoke comes out, this will completely paralyze the human movement, and you cannot move. It's not of the degree of the burns that death happens. Death initially happens due to the intoxication of this smoke. And Kuwaiti authorities have made all the emergency measures available right on the moment this fire was detected. And the top higher administration of Kuwait government is also involved in the relief and rescue measures, along with the Indian embassy officials who have moved their machinery right in place so that all the emergency services were provided.
All right. Thank you so much, Vinod, for these updates. We'll keep taking updates from you since it's a developing story. The Union Territory of Jammu and Kashmir is witnessing a sudden escalation of terror attacks. It all began on 9th of June when a bus plunged into a gorge after being attacked by terrorists, followed by an attack on a village in Kathua, and then an exchange of fire between terrorists and security forces in Doordarshan district. In a big breakthrough for security coming close on heels of these terror attacks, 2 terrorists have been neutralized on Wednesday. In the last 80 hours, 3 separate attacks have taken place, raising concerns about the law and order situation in the region. Here's a detailed report.
2 terrorists who had opened fire in a Hiranagar village in Jammu and Kashmir's Kathua district late Tuesday night have been neutralized in an encounter. A paramilitary soldier was also martyred in action. Two encounters that began overnight in Jammu and dragged into the wee hours of morning. This included one in Doordarshan district where 5 soldiers and a special police officer were injured in an attack on an army post. Anand Jain, Additional Director General of Police, Jammu Zone, supervising the anti-terrorist operations in Kathua, shared details of the encounters.
छतरकला में अभी रात को आपको जैसे पता है कि हमारा एक ऑपरेशन आर्मी सीआरपीएफ पुलिस सभी का एक जॉइंट ऑपरेशन वहाँ पर उस इलाके में चल रहा था। तो उस जॉइंट ऑपरेशन के तहत जब टेररिस्ट एक्सचेंज फायर हुआ है तो उसमें उस इलाके को पूरा कॉर्डन में लिया गया। 2 आतंकवादियों को मार गिराया गया है और अभी सर्च ऑपरेशन इलाके में चल रहा है।
Calling Hiranagar Kathua attack as a fresh infiltration bid, Anand Jain, ADGP, Jammu Zone, did point at Pakistan without naming it and referring it to as a hostile neighbor.
ये हमारा एक हॉस्टाइल नेबर है जिसके यहाँ पर जो पीसफुल हमारा सारा एनवायरनमेंट है उसको डैमेज करने के लिए उसकी हमेशा कोशिश ये रहती है। तो लिहाजा ये जो इन्फिल्ट्रेशन है ये अपीयर टू बी फ्रेश इन्फिल्ट्रेशन।
Jammu has been high on the terror radar with these attacks being reported from areas known to be free of terrorism traditionally. 2 days earlier, a bus on its way to the Shiv Khori cave temple came under attack in Riyasi district of Jammu. The terrorists opened fire after the bus driver refused to deboard the passengers but lost control and fell into the gorge, killing 9 people, including a toddler, and injuring as many as 33 passengers. The attack was carried out on the directions of Lashkar-e-Taiba commander Abu Hamza as per the Jammu Kashmir police. The Riyasi terror attack was deeply condemned by the entire country. The President of India, the Prime Minister of India, the Home Minister, the Lieutenant Governor of the Jammu and Kashmir all condemned the attack, stating that the perpetrators of this dastardly attack will not be spared. Sakal Bhatt's report for DD India.
Police security tightened in Jammu and Kashmir after terror attack. Vehicles being checked in the Thatri area of Doda after an encounter started between security forces and terrorists on Wednesday. Jammu and Kashmir police released sketches of 4 terrorists involved in terror-related activities in the valley. A cash reward of ₹5 lakhs announced for providing information of each terrorist. Based on specific information, huge amount of arms and ammunition recovered in Kupwara. And DD India correspondent Vivek Pathak joins us from Jammu. Vivek, a very good morning to you. Now, after this cowardly attack, security has been tightened in the region. You are at ground zero. Vehicles are being checked. What is the latest that you are getting for us from there?
Siddharth, the latest is that yesterday night, one more attack, terrorist attack, 4th attack in 4 days, happened in Doda district of Jammu and Kashmir.
Okay.
And after that, the police released sketches of 4 to 5 terrorists who are supposed to be active in the higher reaches of Doda district. There are 3-4 areas in Doda district which are where there are apprehensions that terrorists might be in those areas.
Okay.
And as you said, the police has given a reward of 5 lakhs
yes,
for information of each of those terrorists.
Yeah.
Siddharth, what is worrisome here in this situation? Terrorist attacks keeps happening in Jammu and Kashmir. The state is a sensitive state. But what is worrisome is that Jammu province was always considered as a province where there is less number of terrorist attacks as compared to the Kashmir Valley. But in the recent days, in the last 4 days, if we see, those areas have been targeted. Where there were no terrorist attack in the last few years, or very rarely terrorist attacks happen. For example, if we talk about Kathua, when the pilgrims or the tourists come by road to J&K for travel, the first district that they will enter is Kathua.
Okay.
And I have never heard that anything of such kind has happened in Kathua. But it has come, the attack that happened in Kathua, and the nature of the attack that happened is also worrisome, because earlier the attack used to happen on directly on security forces. Terrorists used to attack on the installations or the sensitive locations where there were army bases. But now the whole modus operandi has changed.
Okay.
Now what is happening is that 2 to 3 terrorists are going from home to home and asking people whether they are from a particular community or not, whether they are ex-servicemen or not. As per reports, as I was telling you, that fourth attack happened in Doda. As per reports, the two terrorists went to a home in Doda yesterday night, and they asked from the owner of the home, "Are you an ex-serviceman?" And the person who was there, they were a little apprehensive about those persons who were there at their home. So they said, "No, we are not from the family of any ex-serviceman." So they just had some water and left. And after that, they informed the local police.
Definitely, Vivek, the situation is certainly not at all right. But we'll keep taking updates from you, on this particular issue. But thank you so much for your analysis. Well, the first session of Parliament after India's general election will be held from June 24th to July 3rd. During the first 3 days of session, the newly elected leaders will take their oaths or affirm their membership in the lower house of the Parliament. This will be followed by the election of the Speaker of the House. On June 27, India's President Draupadi Murmu will address a joint sitting of the two houses, likely presenting the new government's roadmap for the coming 5 years. The session is scheduled to conclude on Wednesday, the 3rd of July. And still to come on DD India News Hour. Group of 7 leaders to provide Ukraine with $50 billion. NATO defense ministers to discuss the alliance's ongoing support for Ukraine. Former US President Donald Trump's legal team responds to a guilty verdict he was given in New York. You're watching DD India News Hour. I'm Siddharth Bharadwaj. India's Prime Minister Narendra Modi will travel to Italy on Thursday to attend the Group of 7 summit. In his first overseas visit after assuming office for the third time, Prime Minister Modi would join global leaders in attending the G7 summit, which is being held in Italy's Borgo Enasia from June 13th to 15th. Our correspondent Amritpal Singh reports from Puglia in Italy.
Days after assuming office, Prime Minister Modi will make a day-long visit to Italy to participate in the G7 summit on June 14th. Italian Prime Minister Giorgia Meloni had extended an invitation to Prime Minister Modi to attend the G7 summit under her presidency of the global bloc.
The visit assumes a significance as this will be Honorable Prime Minister's first overseas travel after assuming office in his third consecutive term. It will also afford him an opportunity to engage with other world leaders present at the G7 summit on issues of importance to India as also to the global south. Prime Minister will participate in the outreach session along with the other countries invited for the outreach summit.
As world leaders gather here in the picturesque settings by the Adriatic Sea, Prime Minister Modi will be holding bilateral meetings with G7 leaders, including with US President Joe Biden and UK Prime Minister Rishi Sunak, as also with his Italian counterpart Giorgia Meloni. The Prime Minister on Friday will address an outreach session where he'll address issues related to food security, health and development. Prime Minister Modi will also hold bilateral meetings with his counterparts from other G7 partner countries. The Prime Minister is expected to address issues of the global south, development and climate change.
Meeting between the two Prime Ministers will be a great opportunity to see what has been done in the bilateral ties in the last 2-3 years, but also to give it a more strategic dimension. Participating countries, both the G7 and the partners, will have an opportunity to discuss the important economic issues that are on the global table, and also they will discuss some of the key regional and global issues on the agenda.
The G7 summit is a grouping of the world's 7 most developed economies that include Canada, France, Germany, Japan, the United Kingdom and the United States of America as its member nations. As the Italy summit is largely focused on the ongoing conflicts in West Asia and Ukraine, the G7 is likely to adopt its plan of funding the Ukrainian war chest through frozen Russian assets. India, on its part, would like to stay away from any such move that directly incriminates Russia, thus reiterating its long-standing position that the way forward is through dialogue and diplomacy and not through war. With cameraman Shailendra Chauhan, this is Amritpal Singh in Borgo Enazia, Italy.
India's Foreign Secretary Vinay Mohan Kwatra said that during Prime Minister Narendra Modi's visit to Italy, the issue of cross-border terrorism will be raised at highest level in G7 meet.
So far as the issue of terrorism is concerned and the nature of cross-border terrorism that India faces, I'm sure that in terms of the challenges that such instances pose to the general peace and stability in the region, they would suitably figure in Prime Minister's bilateral conversation as and when it is necessary, depending upon the agenda of bilateral discussions.
U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken vowed on Wednesday to keep pressing to seal a Gaza ceasefire deal, saying that not all Hamas demands were acceptable, but voicing hope that gaps could be closed. Consulting with key mediator Qatar on the Hamas response to U.S. President Joe Biden's plan, Blinken said Hamas could have given a clear and simple yes, but voiced guarded hope for moving forward.
So, we were waiting on one response, and that was the response from Hamas. And as the Prime Minister said, last night we received a response. Hamas has proposed numerous changes to the proposal that was on the table. We discussed those changes last night with Egyptian colleagues and today with the Prime Minister. Some of the changes are workable, some are not.
Hamas said on Tuesday that it was ready to deal positively with the process, but stressed the need for Israel to agree to a permanent ceasefire and full withdrawal from Gaza. The Israeli government did not comment, but an anonymous official said the Palestinian armed group's response amounted to a rejection. Israel's Prime Minister has not yet publicly endorsed the proposal, which US President Joe Biden said had been offered by the country when he outlined it 12 days ago. But Blinken said Benjamin Netanyahu had reaffirmed his commitment during a meeting in Jerusalem on Monday. The UN Security Council also passed a resolution supporting the proposal that day, adding to the diplomatic pressure that Washington is exerting. Group of 7 leaders on Wednesday agreed to provide Ukraine with $50 billion via the use of frozen Russian assets by the end of 2024. The agreement was signed ahead of a G7 summit in Italy on Thursday that will focus on backing Kyiv's fight against Russia. G7 leaders had aimed to agree a deal on using the profits from the interest on $325 billion of frozen Russian central bank assets to help Kyiv, using the profits as collateral for a loan of up to $50 billion. US President Joe Biden will sign a new security agreement with Ukraine on Thursday to pledge America's long-term support to the country. The US President arrived in Italy on Wednesday for the annual summit of leaders from the Group of 7 major democracies. During his meeting with leaders of the Group of 7 democracies, Biden will sign a new security agreement with Ukraine. White House National Security Advisor Jake Sullivan told reporters that the agreement will include a commitment to working with the US Congress on funding Ukraine going forward. The agreement, however, will not commit to using US forces on the ground. He further added that 15 countries have signed the security agreement, which will strengthen Ukraine's defensive deterrence capability. And still to come on DD India News Hour. French President Emmanuel Macron urges rival parties to join his electoral alliance against Marine Le Pen's far-right national rally. United Nations Security Council likely to vote on Thursday on a British-drafted resolution. And some reports say African snail is facing extinction. Is that so? Stay tuned to know more.
Voice of a rising aspirational world. Stories of challenges, struggles and accomplishment. A world battling conflict, hunger and poverty. Embracing growth, development, science and technology. A voice of progress, a voice of unity. Watch Voice of the Global South with me, Akshay Dongre, only on DD India.
You're watching DD India News Hour. I'm Siddharth Bharadwaj, and a quick recap of headlines. In a tragic incident, over 40 Indians killed in a building fire in Kuwait. India's Prime Minister Narendra Modi holds review meeting, directs officials to extend all possible assistance. Gaza ceasefire plan in balance as US says Hamas proposed changes. US Federal Reserve keeps key lending rate unchanged, one cut possible in 2024, down from the 3 expected in March. India beat USA by 7 wickets in ICC Men's T20 World Cup 2024, qualifies for Super 8 stage. NATO defense ministers will discuss the alliance's ongoing support for Ukraine in the face of Russia's intensifying invasion at a meeting in Brussels today. The ministers are also expected to get closer to agreeing who will become the alliance's next Secretary General. Alex Cadier reports from Brussels.
Well, the big focus, like it has so often been at NATO defense ministerial meetings, is going to be on Ukraine. There will be a meeting of the Ukraine Defense Contact Group, that is the 31 NATO members plus a handful of other countries interested in supporting Ukraine against Russia's invasion. We know from the US ambassador to NATO that those discussions will focus on Ukraine's immediate and short-term battlefield needs. And the big question is whether or not there will be a change in position from certain NATO allies when it comes to using their weapons to target specific military infrastructure in Russia to help defend parts of Ukraine like Kharkiv, which has been under a lot of pressure recently. So those immediate military needs, and a question is as to whether or not Ukraine should be allowed to hit deeper into Russian territory, all on the agenda for the Ukraine Defense Contact Group and the NATO-Ukraine Council, a formal environment in which Ukrainian officials, Ukrainian ministers can meet with their NATO counterparts to collaborate on those immediate needs, but also on longer term needs like accession discussions. And again, we've had the position from the United States there that there should be a bridge built to help Ukraine get to NATO membership, but that can only happen after the conditions are met and the reforms are seen through by Ukraine. But certainly Ukraine, the focus at this meeting of the NATO defense ministers. Another big question will be whether or not the NATO allies can agree now on the next Secretary General to replace Jens Stoltenberg. Mark Rutte, the outgoing Dutch Prime Minister, is still the favourite, and we understand from NATO officials that a confirmation for the next NATO Secretary General will certainly be reached before July. Alex Cadier in Brussels reporting for DD India.
Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky met with Saudi Arabia's Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman in Jeddah. Zelensky said that on his Saudi visit, he held productive and energetic talks with Saudi Crown Prince, focusing on this week's peace summit in Switzerland and improving bilateral ties. Ukraine is bringing together dozens of world leaders and international organizations in Switzerland this weekend to mount pressure on Russia and outline a path towards peace. French President Emmanuel Macron on Wednesday urged rival parties to join his electoral alliance against Marine Le Pen's far-right national rally, while the conservative Republicans ditched their party chief for seeking a far-right pact. Macron, who ruled out quitting if his ruling alliance loses, called on all compatriots and political leaders who do not recognize themselves in the extremist fever to build a new project, a coalition to govern. In a sign of the political chaos that Macron's decision has unleashed, the Republican Party leadership on Wednesday decided to kick out their party chief. Eric Ciotte, after appeal for an electoral alliance between his party's candidates and the national rally known as RN. Macron described such an accord as a deal with the devil. It would have ended the decades-long mainstream political consensus to block the far right from power. British opposition Labour leader Keir Starmer will unveil his party's agenda for government on Thursday, putting wealth creation and economic growth at the heart of his pitch to voters before July 4 election. With 3 weeks to go before the election, Starmer is the latest leader to launch its party's manifesto, a blueprint for what Labour would do in government, and one he described as setting out a total change in direction. Just 2 days after Prime Minister Rishi Sunak revealed $21.8 billion of tax cuts in his Conservative manifesto. It will also mark a clear break from Labour's long-held image of being a tax and spend party, a message that might further alienate those on the left of the party. Canada's House of Commons has unanimously passed a motion recognizing the Tibetan claim to self-determination. The non-binding motion recognizes Tibetans as a people and a nation with the inherent right to determine their own social, economic, cultural and religious policies. The text of the motion also stated that China is carrying out a policy of systematic cultural assimilation against Tibetans. Haiti's administration swore in new ministers on Wednesday, rounding out the new Prime Minister's cabinet as the country battles a deep humanitarian crisis fueled by armed gangs. The cabinet announced nearly 2 weeks after Prime Minister Gary Coney himself was named to his post, trims the number of ministers while replacing all who served in former Prime Minister Ariel Henry's cabinet. During his speech, Coney promised to rebuild the country and to work to improve the living conditions of Haitians. The new cabinet, the Prime Minister will also serve as Interior Minister, controlling much of Haiti's security forces as well as intelligence gathering. Separately, Coney's office said he had met on Tuesday with U.S. Ambassador Dennis Hankins, with whom he had discussed U.S. support for a long-delayed security force set to bolster Haitian police in its fight against gangs. Former U.S. President Donald Trump's legal team responded on Wednesday to a guilty verdict he was given in New York on 34 counts of falsifying business records. Trump's lawyers argue that the gag order unfairly restricts his ability to defend himself publicly, especially against criticism from political opponents such as President Joe Biden, actor Robert De Niro, and others involved in this case. DT India's Caroline Malone reports from Washington.
Donald Trump awaits sentencing after being found guilty of trying to cover up hush money payments to former adult film star Stormy Daniels. His lawyers have said they will appeal. The New York judge in the case must formally approve the verdict and enter a final judgment. He's set July 11th for the sentencing hearing. That's a time for the prosecution and defense teams to argue over what punishment Trump should get and for the judge to make a final decision. That will come just days before the Republican Party is likely to officially nominate Trump as their candidate for president, ahead of the GOP convention, where he's due to announce a vice president. Falsifying business records can get someone up to 4 years in prison, but most people, especially first-time offenders like Trump, usually get much less time or just a fine or probation. If he were to be given jail time, though, and then win November's presidential election, he could still serve as the US leader. Caroline Malone in Washington reporting for DD India.
The United Nations Security Council is likely to vote on Thursday on a British-drafted resolution that demands a halt to the siege of al-Fashir in Sudan's North Darfur region by paramilitary rapid support forces. The draft text also calls for an immediate halt to the fighting and for de-escalation in and around the city and the withdrawal of all fighters that threaten the safety and security of civilians. Britain has asked for the draft to be voted on by the 15-member council on Thursday afternoon. A resolution needs at least 9 votes in favor and no vetoes by Russia, China, the United States, Britain or France to be adopted. The draft text to be voted on by the Security Council calls on the parties to the conflict to seek an immediate cessation of hostilities, leading to a sustainable resolution to the conflict through dialogue. A massive fire erupted at an oil refinery storage facility in Kurdistan, Iraq on Wednesday night. Footage showed huge flames and thick plumes. According to local media, the fire broke out at approximately 8:30 p.m. local on Wednesday. Preliminary assessments indicated that fire started in the refinery's liquid asphalt warehouse. No casualties have been reported. The giant African snail is highly sought after in many parts of the world for both its nutritional benefits and its use in cosmetics. But in Ghana, the edible snail species is gradually facing extinction. Farmers are now prioritizing snail farming to keep the industry alive. DD India correspondent Nabil Ahmed Rufai reports from Accra.
Emmanuel Chene started breeding giant African snails in this greenhouse 5 years ago. It was mainly to provide an alternative source of protein for local consumption.
We have limited protein sources. It is just about meat, fish or egg, and that's it. And then I also realized that snails and then other source of proteins which used to be there in the olden days with time are getting fade out.
In Ghana, snails usually breed in natural environments that are marshy and wet, but the edible snail species have faced extinction over time due to variations in weather patterns and intense dry spells linked to climate change. So farmers are investing in other technologies like the greenhouse to help the production of the local delicacy. It takes between 4 to 6 months for the snails to mature after their eggs are hatched. People come to this market to buy snails mainly to use it in preparing different types of dishes. Some add the snails to soups and sauces, while others just fry and eat them. MEA sells these snails at $8 for 5.
People like snails because they are very nutritious and healthy. But these days, we do not get the quantities we need from the farmers.
Beyond its nutritional benefits, the shells of snails can be crushed and used as poultry feed, while the mucus is used for cosmetic products. The global snail value chain business is worth more than $2 billion.
If we're able to produce a ton of snail slime every month, it means a lot of money, and this is going to boost our economy. This is going to increase employment. It's going to increase even our GDP. It's going to ensure that we have a lot of foreign exchange coming in and all that.
Even though his business has been sluggish lately due to lack of funds, Emmanuel Chene hopes to scale up production of his snails soon in order to tap into the export market. Nabil Ahmed Rufai in Accra, Ghana, reporting for DD India.
The top lot at Christie's Magnificent Jewels sold on Tuesday for $13.3 million, exceeding its estimate of $9 million to $12 million. The Eden Rose is a rare 10.2 carat round, brilliant, fancy, intense pink diamond. The producers of the James Bond movies will receive honorary Oscars at a ceremony this November. The award is a testament to his success as producers of the fan-favorite Bond series and their contribution to the industry's theatrical landscape. Chinese panda makes a first media appearance after returning from South Korea. South Korean-born giant panda named Fu Bao was presented to Chinese media on Wednesday for the first time since entering the country. Her media appearance followed a 2-month quarantine and health inspection. And still to come on DD India News Hour. US stocks hit record highs, dollar pairs loses after CPI Fed decision. Tesla shareholders to vote on massive pay package to CEO Elon Musk in Thursday's annual shareholders meeting. And the Olympic torch explores the secrets of Reunion, the intense island.
We just don't bring you the news as it unfolds. We get to the heart of the matter.
We don't just present facts, we demystify complex social, political and economic events.
We break stories that shape the world's present and future because you deserve the truth.
I am Tanvi Taneja from New Delhi.
I'm Ollie Barrett from London.
I'm Nick Harper from Washington, D.C.
Join us on DD India Global Monday to Friday at these times.
You're watching DD India News Hour. I'm Siddharth Bharadwaj. Now let's take a look at stories related to International Yoga Day to be celebrated on 21st of June. As International Yoga Day approaches, special yoga sessions and camps are being organized across Mathura district in northern Indian state of Uttar Pradesh. Yoga gurus gave information about yogasanas and pranayam like Kapal Bhati and Anulom Vilom to the people during the training. In the camp, not only the benefits of yoga were explained, but an appeal was also made to do yoga regularly. Such camps are being organized in many parks. Yoga is being taught to cure diseases. Along with religious and social organizations, political parties also helped promote yoga among all sections of the society.
योग करने से तो बहुत फायदे हैं. आपका इंटरनल सारे ऑर्गन्स जो होते हैं वो मतलब सही रहते हैं.
योग सभी लोग कर में सबके लिए बोलूँगा. योग से बहुत फायदे होते हैं. स्वस्थ शरीर रहता है, निरोगी काया रहती है आपकी. सबसे बेस्ट है योग करना और सबको करना चाहिए.
Norwegian ambassador to India, May Ellen Sterner, calls yoga India's greatest gift to the world, expressing her agreement with Prime Minister Narendra Modi on yoga uniting millions of people across the globe. Sterner terms yoga as one of India's greatest gifts in giving inner peace and holistic health to the world. On to business now. The US Federal Reserve announced its interest rate decision on Wednesday after a 2-day Federal Open Market Committee meeting, leaving the benchmark interest rates unchanged at 5.25% to 5.5% for the 7th straight meeting. The Fed decided to hold the federal funds rate after the Consumer Price Index reported that inflation was flat month over month in May, less than expected 0.1% increase. After raising the policy rate by 5.25 percentage points since March of 2022 in one of swiftest Fed reactions to rising price pressures, the central bank has now kept the policy rate on hold since July 2023 to anchor in high inflation and bring it down consistently toward the 2% target range.
My colleagues and I remain squarely focused on achieving our dual mandate goals of maximum employment and stable prices for the benefit of the American people. Our economy has made considerable progress toward both goals over the past 2 years. The labor market has come into better balance, with continued strong job gains and a low unemployment rate. Inflation has eased substantially from a peak of 7% to 2.7%, but is still too high. We are strongly committed to returning inflation to our 2% goal in support of a strong economy that benefits everyone.
The S&P 500 and Nasdaq posted record closing highs for a third straight day on Wednesday after inflation data came in softer than expected, but the indexes ended off the day's highs as the Federal Reserve projected only one interest rate cut this year. Stocks were choppy following the news and press conference with Fed Chair Jerome Powell, with the S&P 500 and Nasdaq pairing gains late and the Dow finishing near flat. The Dow Jones Industrial Average fell 35.21 points to 38,712.21. The S&P 500 rose 45.71 points to 5,421.03, and the Nasdaq Composite advanced 264.89 points to 17,608.44. The S&P 500 posted 39 new 52-week highs and 2 new lows. The Nasdaq Composite recorded 99 new highs and 18 new lows. The International Monetary Fund has approved the second review of its extended fund facility for Sri Lanka. Sri Lanka's foreign minister said that IMF board's approval is a testament to the Sri Lankan government's dedication to driving forward economic reforms. In March last year, IMF had approved the $2.9 billion USD bridge financing package, which is available to Sri Lanka over a 48-month period. The approval by the IMF management and the IMF Executive Board on economic policies to conclude the second review of the 4-year EFF supported program and the 2024 Article 4 consultation will unlock access to approximately $330 million in financing. Tesla shareholders have a big decision to make today. They'll be voting on whether to award CEO Elon Musk a $56 billion payout. It's the biggest executive compensation package in history. But it would come as Tesla grapples with slowing sales and is laying off 10% of its workforce. And the outcome could impact plans for the electric vehicle giant to expand to India. Tony Waterman has more from outside Tesla's Gigafactory in Austin, Texas, where the company is headquartered.
Elon Musk has not received a dime from Tesla since 2018. No salary, no stock options, no bonuses. Instead, at the time, he had struck a deal with the Tesla board that would give him very favorable stock options if he met a bunch of really difficult targets, including growing the company from $59 billion to $650 billion in the span of a decade. And incredibly, he met those targets and now wants his due. But in January, a judge struck down the plan, saying the deal wasn't negotiated in good faith because the board was beholden to Musk. And on Thursday, shareholders will get their say. This vote has really become a referendum on Musk himself. Major shareholders, including Norway's trillion-dollar sovereign wealth funds, say they'll vote against the pay package, citing concerns over its size and structure. But Musk's supporters say without his relentless drive and uncompromising standards, there would be no Tesla. And some on the board are warning that if shareholders do not pass this pay package, Musk may leave the company altogether. That could potentially have a knock-on effect for India. Musk has been aggressively pushing for the company to expand into the country. And in fact, just last week, when congratulating Prime Minister Narendra Modi on his election victory, Musk said he looked forward to his companies doing exciting work in India. Whatever shareholders decide on Thursday, experts say the impact is likely to not be immediate. If the vote is in favor of the pay package, it will still need to get reinstated by a judge. And if they vote no, there's likely to be a negotiating process for Musk to start receiving a salary. Tony Waterman in Austin, Texas, reporting for DD India.
You're watching DD India News Hour. Time now for sport. India confirms a Super 8 spot, registering a 7-wicket win over United States at Nassau County International Cricket Stadium in New York on Wednesday. Put into bat first, the Americans struggled as Arshdeep dismissed Shayan Jahangir and Andreas in the first over. But Steven Taylor and Nitish Kumar set a stage for competitive total of 110 for 8. Meanwhile, India also struggled at the start with Saurabh sending openers Virat Kohli and Rohit Sharma back early. But Surya Kumar Yadav and Shivam Dube steadied the innings and got the India over the line with 10 balls to spare. The US, second in Group A with 4 points after suffering their first loss in 3 matches, will also ensure qualification for the next round if they beat Ireland on Friday. The Olympic torch traversed through the remote French island of Réunion. Roughly 100 torchbearers carried the flame across the volcanic island with legendary handball player Daniel Narcisse. The Olympic cauldron will be lit at the opening ceremony on July 26 in Paris. That's all for this edition of DD India News Hour, but let us know your thoughts on the news of the day. For those on the go, you can get all the latest news and updates from India and across the world on the DD India mobile app. The app is available on both Android and iOS platforms. Scan the QR code on the screen to download now. We'll be back with more news as it breaks here on DD India. I'm Siddharth Bharadwaj from all of us here in Delhi. Thanks for watching DD India News Hour.